The following program contains content regarding suicide awareness and other material that may be difficult for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Life is beautiful, but there are times it can also feel challenging, isolating, or even hopeless. Still, in the midst of even the darkest of struggles, you are not alone. Help is just a call or text away. This is Inspiring Hope 988, and we're so glad you're here. Welcome to Inspiring Hope 988. I'm your host, Danielle Lerner. 988 is a national suicide and crisis lifeline offering free and confidential support for people in crisis or emotional distress. We're here at Solari Crisis and Human Services in Tempe because this is where 988 calls, texts, or chats coming from Arizona are answered. Now, as we go throughout the show, we will be discussing some sensitive material related to suicide, substance use, and mental illness. We feel it's important to shine a light on these issues impacting our communities, and no crisis is too big or too small. Here's a closer look at how 988 can help.
Mental health is a tough challenge to face on your own, and so even just knowing that somebody is there for you, even if you don't access our services, it's sometimes enough just to know that they're there and that you could if you needed to. And so I think it's really important that we educate the community that we're here and we're here to help.
988 is really a mental health service, so it's the crisis line. It's our 3-digit dialing system for the 1-800 number. They're able to talk to you about what's going on. Lots of folks call in with things like suicide, homicide, psychosis, or just really any mental health crisis, anxiety, depression, things like that. We really talk to folks about how we can help them. You can call or text or chat 988 any way that you feel most comfortable reaching out to get support. There will be a live specialist on the other line who's able to help and who's able to communicate with you in that way. I think it's important for people to know that 988 is here, that there is help, that there is hope, that these things are never easy to talk about, but 988 is a great starting point and will always help you take those first steps on what better looks like for you. No matter how you reach out to 988, so you can call, you can text, you will reach a crisis specialist. So these folks are people who are familiar with crisis systems in their area. They are BHTs, so they're behavioral health technicians. They have worked in crisis. I know at Solari you have to have a specific number of years of crisis experience to be able to work on the lines. So you have your crisis specialist. They focus on the least invasive means of care. So they're really looking at how can we help you in the least restrictive way. Sometimes that's just telephonic support. About 80% of our calls are what we call community stabilized. And so we focus on that and how we might be able to intervene with natural supports, things that are already available to somebody, like clinics, like their family, like their friends, like us, and then we focus on things like those mobile team dispatches as well.
It's important for the community to have this resource just to make sure that they have a safe space where they can be connected to ongoing services or just somebody to talk to. It's really, really important for everybody's mental health that they have a lifeline out there, and that's what 988 is.
Help is available 24/7 in English and Spanish, and help is available for other languages in real-time interpreter services. There's no cost associated to reaching out to 988. There's no cost associated to the mobile teams available in Arizona or the support that you get on the line. The most important thing about 988 is recognizing that mental health impacts everything. And so if you're able to start somewhere, start with 988, with reaching out, with knowing that there is help available for you 24/7.
The need for innovative resources like 988 continues to grow. In the last year, calls to the crisis line have increased by more than 1,000 calls per month, and every call that comes in is answered in less than 10 seconds. Still ahead, we learn more about Solari's extensive experience in the crisis space, plus getting to know the people answering those calls and texts for help. But first, some history. 988 replaced the previous National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-TALK, in July of 2022. It also rebranded as the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline to make clear this is a service for any and all mental health issues. The simple 3-digit number was chosen to make it as easy as possible to remember. We'll be right back.
Text HOPE to 4HOPE whenever you're feeling overwhelmed. Free and confidential help is just a text away.
Life is full of bright moments. But sometimes those moments seem too far away. Trained and caring crisis specialists here in Arizona can assist you with any situation, big or small. Call or text 988 for free and confidential mental health support 24/7. These moments matter, and so do you.
Text HOPE to 4HOPE. Chat with someone here in Arizona who can support your mental health.
Text HOPE to 4HOPE. You'll chat with a caring specialist who can support you and provide resource connections.
I felt hopeless. I almost gave up and gave in. But I was allowed another chance by a phone call, and that's just amazing to me.
Welcome back to Inspiring Hope 988. Here at Solari, these are Arizonans helping Arizonans. With every call or text that comes into 988, their goal is the same: improving lives and communities through human connection. Joining me now is Justin Chase, Chief Executive Officer here at Solari, and you are also a trained social worker, which certainly brings unique experience and perspective to the work that they are doing here. Justin, thanks so much for having us.
Absolutely. Glad to have you here.
So Solari has been taking crisis calls since 2007, taking calls from 988 since 2022. Why is that experience in this crisis space so important?
Yeah, it's really critical for us to be able to have the experience to really meet the expectations and the growth that we're expecting to see for 988's volume, to be able to meet the ongoing demand. The individuals across the country are going to be outreaching the services.
Yeah, speaking of that, you have been here for nearly a decade now. How have you seen mental illness and mental health care really evolve in the public eye during that time?
Yeah, I think we've seen it go from shame and heavy stigma in this past decade to really one of acceptance and hope.
We know that your crisis specialists here, they are passionate about their work and helping people, but I imagine it can also be tough or even stressful work. So what sort of training do you give them, and how do you ensure that they are being cared for as well?
First, we've got to acknowledge the staff. They are the foundation of this organization on the front line of life-saving work. For each one of our staff members, they're going to come typically with a bachelor's degree and 2 to 4 years experience. A few will have a master's degree as well, but then we're going to train them in a classroom style for the first 40 hours, and then they're going to move into a mentorship program for the next 4 to 6 weeks to really be able to engage and have a customized experience as we're getting ready for their full independent status.
One of the stats that really jumped out to me was that about 80% of calls are resolved during that initial call. But what happens if someone might need more help or support beyond that?
Yeah, I think we do a good job of being able to engage individuals on the phone, but in the event that we're not successful in stabilizing on the phone, we're going to coordinate with a community stakeholder or a community provider to be able to provide mobile crisis services, where we'll send out a couple clinicians or a peer to work with the individual and family in the community. We'll also transition and coordinate folks getting into a facility if they need detox services or need to see a prescriber or a doctor for their psychiatric needs. Then in rare instances, we will coordinate with first responders if we have a public safety concern or a medical emergency that we're working with as well.
Yeah, so really that network of support that's available is truly incredible. Now, as someone who candidly has dealt with my own mental health crisis, I know that shame and stigma you referred to firsthand. So for anyone out there who may be struggling, who may be feeling that, what do you want them to know about 988?
Best thing is that it's there, that it's a resource. It's 100% free. You don't have to worry about the level of of acuity or anything else, just call, reach out. If you're concerned for yourself or for a loved one, 988 is a resource 24/7.
Well, Justin, we can't thank you enough for having us out here and really for all of the incredible work that's happening here to help Arizonans.
Thank you.
And we want to remind you, if you or someone you know is struggling, 988 is there. By text, chat, or phone, a trained specialist is standing by, ready to listen. It's all anonymous and without judgment. But today, we get to highlight a voice on the other end. Meet Nicole.
988 Lifeline, this is Nicole. There's a common misconception that 988 is just a suicide hotline. We're really trying to move away from that. 988 is for any crisis, which is self-defined by the person who's calling and what they might be experiencing. A crisis can be anything of any shape and size. A crisis can be an argument with a parent, breakup, or having difficulties with your rent, or losing someone that you love, feeling suicidal or homicidal, or anything in between. We do not define the crisis. The crisis is completely defined by the person who's calling. So when someone calls 988, they will be connected with a specialist within just a couple of seconds. 988 is a suicide and crisis line that's there to support anyone and anyone of any shape and size, regardless of where you are, whenever you're in a time of need. You know, I may not understand what a caller's experience may be, but I understand what it's like to be in pain and to be suffering and to feel like there's no other option for support. Being able to provide a free, individualized support that's immediate is pretty remarkable, as well as having the privilege of having our callers allow us into the most vulnerable moments of their life. We can help you right in the moment and navigate those thoughts with you as you're living through them without having to wait until the next business day, having to wait for you to get an intake or for your next appointment. And we're there to hold your hand and meet you where you're at and work together collaboratively as a team. When someone calls 988, we're going to work alongside the caller to connect with them and to understand the situation. And that specialist is going to be completing what's called a safety assessment. So trying to get an understanding about the situation and what you might be going through. That situation is going to be completely different for each caller based off of what they're experiencing, if they've experienced this before, and how acute or how severe the situation may be. What our goal is to work with you, the caller, about what happens next. So by the end of the call, both of us should have a really good understanding about what to do. We don't want anyone to feel that support has ended. We want to continue that service. That could mean us sending a crisis team out. That could mean assisting with transportation to a hospital or a shelter or another facility, or setting up some kind of follow-up program. 988 Lifeline really helps because 988 meets you where you're at. We work together with you to navigate your own crisis as you define it, to help navigate those next steps and collaborate with a solution. What I want people to know about 988 is anyone can call for any reason. You know, hope is there and help is real, and we're there to work with you through those steps. We're available 24/7, all hours of the day, and we're just seconds away.
Solari and specialists like Nicole have answered more than 4 million crisis calls since 2007. They bring that experience, commitment, and compassion to every 988 interaction. Coming up next, from crisis to connection, we sit down with former 988 callers now sharing their own journey to hope to help others. But first, if you or someone you know is struggling, 988 is there. By text, chat, or phone, a trained operator is standing by, ready to listen and offer support.
Text HOPE to 4HOPE. Free and confidential mental health support is just a text away.
Life is full of bright moments. But sometimes those moments seem too far away. Trained and caring crisis specialists here in Arizona can assist you with any situation, big or small. Call or text 988 for free and confidential mental health support 24/7. These moments matter, and so do you.
Text HOPE to 4HOPE. You'll chat with a caring specialist who can support you and provide resource connections.
Text HOPE to 4HOPE. Chat with someone here in Arizona who can support your mental health.
The following program contains content regarding suicide awareness and other material that may be difficult for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back to Inspiring Hope 988. We've met some of the people taking calls and texts for help, but now it's time to hear from people placing those calls. Every individual's situation is unique, but callers share one thing in common. They reached out for help and found hope. This is Derek's story.
I feel like I don't really have nothing to live for, but I was allowed another chance. Growing up in Oakland was interesting because I got a chance to see all different types of people. When the 80s hit, a lot of the programs got cut. And when those programs got cut, you saw a lot of kids just standing around with nothing to do. I graduated high school and then I spent a lot of years in the streets selling drugs. A good friend of mine who I grew up with, went to school with since, we were little, he was killed. When I looked at the casket and saw him laying there, I realized he wasn't coming back. That's when I started realizing that I could be in that casket. And I started having different thoughts about how I was living, what I was doing, and why, and how would I change my life. So a good friend of mine that I went to high school with, he had moved here to Arizona. I came out to visit, and so I decided to stay in Arizona. I got married, I bought a home, everything was going great. I had a friend of mine come over one day and he said, hey man, I want you to try something. And he said, it's not gonna hurt you. I had been drinking. And he said, it's not gonna hurt you, I promise you. And he gives me a bag of rock cocaine. Over the next, I would say 4 to 5 months, I developed a habit. The relationships in my family started to suffer. I felt like I just needed to get out. And the only way out was death. That's what it seemed like. That was the only way to end all the pain. It was just, I just didn't want to be in pain anymore. And so I'm just smoking this crack. And I'm like, I'm just smoking it till my heart busts. I'm sick of living. I want to die. That's what I was. I wanted to die. I got on the phone and I called the crisis line. And I got somebody on the phone that they just connected with me. They talked to me and made me okay about taking the next step, which I believe saved my life. They made me believe that there was another way. For that moment, I needed that, some hope. I decided I wanted to try to come and work for Crisis Response Network. And I interviewed and got the job here. And it was all surreal for me because the worst things that ever happened to me become something that can help somebody else to maybe not take their life. I want to use all of these experiences to help others. At a moment in time in life, I was at that place. I felt hopeless. I almost gave up and gave in, but I was allowed another chance by a phone call. That's just real amazing to me that can happen.
Solari has several employees who, like Derek, called 988 for help and now use their own experiences to help others. So if you or someone you know is struggling, 988 is there. By text, chat, or phone, a trained operator is standing by, ready to listen and offer support. After the break, from the battlefield to her own personal battle with anxiety and alcohol, meet one of our nation's heroes, proving it's never too late to reach out for help.
Life is full of bright moments. But sometimes those moments seem too far away. Call or text 988 for free and confidential mental health support 24/7.
Text HOPE to 4HOPE. Free and confidential mental health support is just a text away.
Text HOPE to 4HOPE. Chat with someone here in Arizona who can support your mental health.
Trained and caring crisis specialists here in Arizona can assist you with any situation, big or small. Call or text 988 for free and confidential mental health support 24/7. Life is full of bright moments. But sometimes those moments seem too far away. Trained and caring crisis specialists here in Arizona can assist you with any situation, big or small. Call or text 988 for free and confidential mental health support 24/7. These moments matter, and so do you.
They talked me down and got me out of that situation and into an ambulance. They absolutely saved my life that day.
Welcome back to Inspiring Hope 988. Calls to the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline deal with a host of issues and concerns. But no matter how dire the circumstances may seem, you are not alone. One Valley veteran tells us that empathy, compassion, and care saved her life. This is Megan's story.
It's hard to describe to people what constant fear does to you. I grew up in Palm Springs. My mom was a single mom. There was no money for college when it was time for me to go, which is why I ended up joining the Navy. But unfortunately, ship life was not for me. I hated it. So I ended up volunteering to go to the Middle East, and they sent me to work at a prison over in Kuwait. It was an amazing experience, but it changed me. Not knowing when you're hearing bombs go off, if it's gonna be your last day. When you're there, it's fine. All of the little reactions and the triggers and the stuff you have from PTSD makes sense there. It's when you come back home that it's really hard. I remember the first day I was back in the United States after my tour, and the fire alarm went off in the middle of the night. And I jumped out of my bed and crawled under it to grab my bulletproof armor and to go charging outside, but it wasn't there. And the panic was undescribable, and that's when I knew something was off. So I treated myself with alcohol. I was in this dark, dark, dark place. I was done with everything. And I didn't want to be on this earth anymore. I remember looking over at the ocean and thinking of like me and my mom going to the beach and all those memories coming in, and I don't know, I just pulled me out of that hole. I could see the light. It was a little bit of a glimmer of like a future. I called the suicide hotline, And I told him I didn't want to die alone. He's like, you don't have to die alone. You know, you can tell us where you are and someone will come and be with you. And I think that's what finally convinced me to tell him where I was at. I'm so thankful to him. I really, really am. He talked me down and he got me out of that situation and into an ambulance and to exactly where I needed to be. They absolutely saved my life that day.
"988 is for anyone, with English and Spanish-speaking crisis specialists available around the clock and help available in multiple other languages via real-time interpreter services." Joining me now is Beth Brady, Solari's Chief Brand and Development Officer. Beth, you have more than 15 years of experience working in the mental health field. You are a former crisis line specialist. Why is 988 so important and really so needed?
It's so important and needed because it's an easy way for people to reach out and get the help that they need. And so before it was a 10-digit number, and it's just hard to remember and hard when you're in distress, you don't know where to turn. So 988 is really that option that's easily accessible for everyone.
And we know that so many calls are resolved in that initial call, but there are times where mobile crisis teams are dispatched. So what sorts of services do they provide and how does that work?
A mobile crisis team is really for someone who calls in to 988 and feels like they still need more support. They want to meet with someone face to face, maybe to come to their home and really talk them through the crisis. And so the crisis line can dispatch that mobile team who can go out and provide that additional support.
Now, I'm sure there are some folks out there who feel like their crisis isn't big enough or it's not important enough to warrant a call to 988, but that really is not the case.
It's not the case at all. We would much rather prevent a crisis from occurring. So if someone calls, maybe they're not feeling like themselves or they're thinking about getting treatment for substance use, they can call. We'd love to help connect them to resources before it reaches the point of a suicidal crisis.
And Beth, we can't thank you enough for having us out here and really allowing us to highlight the life-saving and life-changing work that is happening here every day. So one more time, if someone out there is struggling, how can they reach out?
They can call, text, or chat 988.
And we want to thank you, our viewers, for taking the time to learn about this incredible resource, 988, and give voice to those in our communities who may be suffering in silence. If you or someone you know is struggling, 988 is there. By text, chat, or phone, someone is standing by right now, ready to help. I'm Danielle Lerner, and we hope this has been informative and can start a bigger conversation about this important issue. And remember, there is hope and healing in even the darkest of times.